What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the You Know Ball podcast. I am your host, Trill Bro Dude. And Sam, how are we feeling today? We feeling good?
Yeah, I mean, when you're, see to me, like losing is actually like funny. Like I was actually like I have a smoking hot wife who's like, she's just out of the frame here to my left. And we were actually just laughing about how funny it is that like the Celtics lost. I think it's fine. I think it's cool. I actually, a lot of jokers and chuckleheads out there from the podcast think, oh, I'm owning Sam by sending him this thing. And you know what? I actually laughed at them. You were actually helping me. Don't look at all of these holes in my wall from where I punched them. It's from something different.
Yeah.
And again, my hot wife
builds character. I've always said failures. There are no failures in sports. Losing builds character. Yeah. You can't win a game unless you've lost a game previously. So,
this was a Giannis win.
Learn from mistakes.
Yeah, we had a Giannis win tonight. If Giannis were on the podium, he would have this great success, huge success for the Boston Celtics.
he would have channeled Borat.
Great success.
All right, so we're going to talk about Jesus Christ. We're going to talk about our sponsors from Underdog Fantasy, who once again, by the way, another L for me last week.
Oh, let's fade those picks.
All I had to do was get one pick right. All I had to do was get one fucking pick right because they gave us the layup with the Jaylen Brown points, and I picked Steph Curry to go higher on his points at 31, and he scored. Going into the fourth quarter, he had like 10 points. I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm legitimately cursed. I give up. So
can I just say something?
What's that?
About this one, because we see the promo, the higher lower on LeBron James. Okay. Now, let's fade our picks, because my instinct on the LeBron James special is to go higher. However, what if we go lower? Zig when they zag.
Let's go lower.
Underdog is trying to trick us into with 12-dimensional chess. This is the game that LeBron is going to rest. Yes. So I think lower is the smart pick. Trill, you seem to have already clicked higher, so I guess we'll just agree to disagree here on this one.
So Underdog is offering the promo pick of LeBron 0.5 points. Maybe if like Joe Lakeup's on the sideline or something tonight, he could take the ball away from LeBron and then LeBron will get ejected. That could be something that could happen that could cause him to go lower on his points tonight, which means all we have to do here is get one pick. Again, second time in a row, we've got to pick between the Knicks and the Heat, and we've got to pick between, once again, the Lakers and the Warriors, but we would have to pick a pick from the Warriors side since we already have the Lakers side with LeBron. So who do you think we should pick here, Sam? Do you want to do you want me to go with it and just continue the fucking streak?
Yeah, I was gonna say let's just keep fading. I mean, we are giving the viewers good intel here. If they
true.
If you've watched long, you've got to know to fade these at this point. Like, come on.
That's a good point. Yeah.
All
right, let me look. Man, Miami has been just locking up the Knicks offense recently. They have not been able to score at all, which in my brain tells me they're still sticking with the starters. In my brain, it tells me that maybe I should go against my instincts in this situation. Mm-hmm. And I'm scrolling down. I'm looking at Miami's points right now. God damn it. All right. My instant thought was Jalen Brunson needs to do something tonight in order for the Knicks to win. Mm-hmm. So you can fade this if you want because you'll make money on it. I'm going to go higher on Jalen Brunson's points, 25. He's been struggling recently. He also might have an ankle injury or something. I don't know. Who cares? It's all fucking random at this point. I never get it right no matter how much I look into it. I'm cursed. So go on Underdog Fantasy, use the promo code SLOP, SLOP, to get a $100 deposit match today. It supports the program, and like in the playoffs especially, these things are a lot of fun if you're in a pick'em state. If you're not in a pick'em state, they also have drafts every single night you can do on Underdog. And so if you do this, it's the layup pick with LeBron. you can put $20 on there and win 60. And Jalen Brunson will definitely go lower on his points tonight because I made that pick. I actually said before the Sixers game on game 3, I said I was going to do higher on Embiid because all Embiid had to do was make 1 3. And I said I was going to do higher, but I didn't do that pick. And then he made the 3. So I know if I went lower, he would have missed it. So get on there today. Fade me. Make money on underdog throughout the playoffs as long as you just follow my page and the podcast and fade all my picks. So we need to talk about that Sixers-Celtics game, obviously up top. Game 3, before we get into game 4, game 3 as a Sixers fan was one of the most frustrating viewing experiences of my personal fandom. It was one of those games where the Celtics were kind of, you called it. You said they were going to win by 11 points. They won by 12. The prophecy continues. But that game was so frustrating to me because it felt like if anyone but Joel Embiid could do literally anything in that game, the Sixers would have had an opportunity to go up 2-1, which would have been a massive difference, obviously. But I also think that it is worth noting that this Celtics team is different if they're down 2-1 versus if they're up 2-1. So I think that this series probably ends up 2-2, if not 3-1 in the favor of the Celtics in some capacity, based on kind of what we've seen so far. But James Harden, once again, game 4, I've never seen anything like this before, where game 1, he comes out, has his best playoff game ever. Game 2, completely horrible. One of the worst games he's ever played in the playoffs. Game 3, same story. Terrible game. Can't hit a shot. Can't get his rhythm going. Is missing everything.
And then what happened? What was the question on everyone's mind heading into game 4?
What's that?
Will Uno respond?
And he
How
did.
will Uno respond? And let me just say, Uno responded.
He absolutely wrote back this time.
Yeah.
It was, once again, very similar to game 1. An insane performance of shot making from all over the court. Pull-up threes, step-back threes, off-the-catch threes, inside, hitting floaters, sending the game to overtime with a floater when the Sixers looked like they were dead and done at the end of this game.
Mm-hmm.
And then once again in overtime, hitting for the second time in a week, hitting a game-winning shot for the Sixers. I think if I remember correctly, a game-winning 3 for the second time.
Yeah.
Put them up 1, with less than the shot clock on the clock and extended. It really saved the Sixers season for the second time in a week, despite having this roller coaster experience where he has these lows. And I'm not going to say the person's name because I don't want them to get shit for this, but I did see something that was very funny where they said James Harden now has lower lows than Ben Simmons in the playoffs, but higher highs than Joel Embiid because he actually became the first Joel Embiid. This stat blew my mind. The first Joel Embiid teammate to ever score 40 points in a game that he played in regular season or playoffs. Tobias Harris has never scored 40 in his career. Maxi's had 40 twice, I believe, or he's had 40 once, but Joel didn't play in that game. Mm-hmm. There have been a few. Jimmy had 39. Maxi had 39 in a game, but no one until this game had ever scored 40 points in a game that Joel Embiid had played in. And honestly, as I know Joel was gassed towards the end of the game, and he was really brilliant in the first half, and then kind of rebounded a little bit in overtime. But Harden, I will say this much. Harden saved Joel Embiid from a lot of slander today because we were definitely on the precipice of like Al Horford stuffing him twice in the fourth quarter, locking him up, making it so that he couldn't score on him. The Sixers going down 3-1, Joel not having beat the Celtics in a playoff game in 5 years. At this point, he's only ever done it once. And Harden was a great pass from Joel. I'm not selling that short either. And then it was also a great play by Joel at the end of the game to contest Jason Tatum so that he had to kick it out to Marcus Smart, who made the 3, but a second too late. So I'm not saying that it was all Harden, but Harden certainly made the shots when they absolutely needed them and carried them for the second time in a week. And I'm just so confused. I've never, like, Jimmy Butler does this sometimes where, like, I actually went back and I looked at Jimmy Butler's stats from the Eastern Conference Finals last year when he played against you guys. And he had one game he had 41 in the first game, 29 in the second game. Then he had 8, 6, 13, 47, and 35. So very similar to the Jimmy Butler experience in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. James Harden has been electric when they've needed him, and one of the worst players in the court in the other two games. So it's a very confusing thing. But if it weren't for him, they would be down 3-1, if not swept by now. So I can't say enough about how amazing he was.
Yeah. No, I mean, I thought my takeaway from this game, I felt as a Celtics fan, I felt the Sixers won this game a lot more. Like game one, I thought the Celtics blew. Like I thought the Celtics lost that game more than the Sixers won it. This one, I felt like the Sixers very much won. I think this was a game that the Sixers were going to win. I thought the Celtics did a very good job. They got 1 billion offensive rebounds. They shot 1 million open threes, and they just didn't. And that happens sometimes. Like you get the other star goes off, and that's how you like lose a playoff game. I honestly feel pretty good about the Celtics. Like there's a lot of, I mean, obviously Joe Mazzulla opening the piss drawer and not calling a timeout is not ideal, but
so hold on, can we talk about that for a second? Because I've heard this a lot on things. Are you talking about the one at the end of regulation or the one?
No, the overtime one.
Overtime one. Okay.
The overtime.
Two timeouts left, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess my question is, like, the Sixers had Maxey on the court, right? Yeah. And every time you've been targeting Maxey, specifically with Jason Tatum, there has been a good outcome of either the Sixers overhelping, Jason Tatum getting an open shot, whatever it is. If you guys get into that action 2 seconds earlier, you win the game. But for some reason, that was what I had more. I didn't have a problem with them not calling a timeout. If I'm from the Celtics perspective, I don't have a problem with him not calling a timeout because the personnel that was on the court is what you want. Tobias has been targeted defensively. Maxey's been targeted defensively. The Sixers overhelp and it leads to open threes. And that's exactly what happened. But because they didn't get into that action 2 to 3 seconds earlier and they wasted so much time, that was really the issue I had.
But that's what the timeout is for. Because I'm of the other mind where I think, because I agree with that way more, which is why I didn't have a huge problem with not calling the timeout at the end of regulation. Because it's a tie game. Like, why not? Like, there's no downside. Like, and you're keeping Maxey on the court. It was almost identical, really. Like the two play, like, it ended up playing out pretty similarly. I thought Tatum actually did a really good job drawing attention both times, getting the pass out. He had 5 guys. He had 5 guys all around him both times. Totally collapsed the defense. Bill and Russillo made me like see red today with like how much they were blaming Marcus Smart for this fucking game, and I just like biting my tongue, tasting blood, like, because I was just like, they're just so not the problem here. Honestly, Jason Tatum, like, normally I would love to like bitch and throw Jason Tatum under the bus. He was amazing. He was so good in the second half. Second half. I mean, he was terrible in the first half, but I will take it. He played exactly the way I've always wanted Jason Tatum to play his entire career. He did it for an entire half and kept doing it down the stretch. He got 2 great looks for them at the end of overtime. And the other thing, he couldn't get into the action quick enough, which is what happens when you don't have a fucking timeout to like figure that out. And I guess my problem with like playing that way when you're down 1, you want to make sure you're getting a good look. It changes quite a bit when you're down 1 versus when it's a tie game. When it's a tie game, you have nothing left to lose. Like there's no downside there. The other thing is I'm not sure. I mean, I guess the Sixers. I really thought the Celtics were getting pretty good looks all game. Like, and they
were getting wide open threes. The process was really good. They just missed a bunch.
So I don't really have, even if Maxey's like on the floor, like, is having like, who would they have put on the, like, Jalen McDaniels on the floor instead of Maxey? Is that going to change?
Probably would have been McDaniels. Yeah. And honestly, McDaniels might foul in that situation.
I really don't think it's that different. It's more important to me when you're down 1. I know that might seem a little bit of a, whatever, but I guess my broader point, and there's the whole thing about Jalen doubling Embiid, which, like, again, I think how you feel about that kind of goes more to how you view Jalen and kind of what your rooting interests are. Like, if you're someone who's
I'm kind of 50-50 on that one, because from the Sixers perspective, like, I don't know, I'm kind of conflicted because I watch the Sixers almost every game, have since they got James Harden especially, and you can't cheat off the guy in the corner. I understand why people are frustrated with the fact that he cheated off James Harden in the corner.
Yeah.
I understand that, when you're up 2, the only thing you can't give up is a 3. So if Joel scores, as long as it isn't an and-one, you're probably going to get a chance to win the game.
But also, by the way, it's like, I mean, Tatum's a great, long, lengthy defender. He's not a great post defender. Like, that's not a good matchup. There's a strong chance that is an N1 if you don't get the ball out of his hands.
I was kind of confused as to why they even had him on him in the first place, to be honest. That was another thing where I was like, okay, well, I don't know why Jason Tatum is guarding Joel Embiid right now. But it led to this possession where Jalen cheats off in the corner. There's no one else over there. You can cheat from pretty much anywhere else on the court because other guys can, make rotations to shooters or whatever. That was the only side of the court that was completely empty with just James Harden. Having said that, I think the Celtics' late game strategy has generally been, let's turn Joel Embiid into a playmaker instead of a scorer. Yes. And let's focus the team defense on turning him into a passer. In game 3, it worked. Joel actually made some decent passes at the end of that game. Maxey clanked some shots. Tobias clanked some shots. Like, they just were not connecting on these shots late in the game because the Celtics were able to rotate over and kind of make them contested looks. In that game, Joel gets the ball, and he's got Tatum in so deep that Brown helps over. And I genuinely mean it when I say this. I cannot remember a single time James Harden has taken a catch-and-shoot corner 3 as a Philadelphia 76er. And to the point where Kevin Pelton, after the game, tweeted and said, in his Sixers career, coming into this playoffs, including last playoffs, James Harden has shot and made 5 catch-and-shoot threes, according to their record. I think it's more than that. For catch-and-shoot corner threes, I'm assuming that he meant. He's had 7 in these playoffs in some capacity of catch and shoot. I think that he is not used to taking that shot. It probably is in Jalen's mind that he's not a catch and shoot guy anyway, so I can recover back and then make him drive even if I cheat off him here and I double Joel. So I think that, and even so, the pass was a little bit off. James had to make a great recovery, caught the ball, made the 3.
Yeah.
I genuinely think we actually figured it out. I think it was 2 other times in his Sixers career where he's taken that exact shot, and one of them was in his first game as a Sixer. And he just doesn't take, like, that is not in the scouting profile for sure. Like, there's no way that they're writing down, like, James Harden can't leave him open in the corner. But at the same time, in that situation, I understand why the people are being critical, because he can't miss in this game. And he knows the situation, and he's going to take that shot. And if you leave a good shooter wide open from 3, he's probably going to make you pay for it, which he did. So I kind of get both sides of the argument. It's not a thing that's in the Sixers repertoire, but it's also not something that in that game situationally you should leave a guy, and it might have been kind of a boneheaded decision in hindsight.
Yeah, it's tough for me to get too, like, mad about that when, like, I think why that is driving, like, Celtics fans so insane is because the game really did feel like it was over with, like, 5 minutes to go, like, where the tide had turned and it was, like, kind of an inevitable death march. Like, Joel looked rattled. Like, he was
gassed. He was completely gassed in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, the arena was quiet. A lot of surrender cobras, like every time they pan to the crowd. Marcus Smart is grifting at a level that, frankly, has never been seen before. the Celtics were getting away with Jason Tatum just missing Tyrese Maxey.
Throwing it, which, by the way, the 2-minute report came out and they said that it was a legal play somehow. So I don't really know how that happens, but the 2-minute report came back and they said that play was clean somehow with Jason Tatum shoving off on Tyrese Maxey, which I was like, okay,
sure enough, sure. I mean, pick your battles. I mean, so I think that's probably why it's like hitting Celtics fans a little hard, but overall, I can't get too mad about that game. Like it sucks that Marcus Smart hit the game-winning shot, but it didn't count. Like, you know, there's a ton of stuff. Joe Mazzulla didn't, you know, there's a lot of psychically damaging stuff. But I guess I kind of expected the Celtics just to lose this game in general. So
you were saying it the whole time, and we were feeling as though when we were watching that game, every time the Sixers had an opportunity to pull away from the Celtics in the first half or in the third quarter, they were just always hanging and hanging and hanging. And it's something that we've talked about in the opposite, where the Celtics do this and they let teams hang. But the Sixers were doing it this game. They were missing wide open threes, transition opportunities. They blew multiple layups in transition in this game when they had an opportunity to really at least put up some points and make it so that this game was a little bit more out of reach, that if you got to the fourth quarter and maybe it was a 20-point game with 5 minutes left, that the Celtics throw the towel in. But because the fact that they let them hang around, and by halftime it's under double digits, you let Jason Tatum hit that shot at the end of the first half after he literally cannot make a shot the entire half, gets him into a little bit of a rhythm. The Celtics come out strong in the second half. The Sixers maintain the lead, but they never can build it up big enough that it feels like they're going to just pull away with the game. And this was a classic, what a way to end this era of the Sixers, was what we were saying on the stream. Was like, you've been the better team today. You've outplayed the Celtics, and you blow a lead at the end at home with a chance to tie the series 2-2 going back to Boston. You go down 3-1. You're not coming back from down 3-1 when you lose a demoralizing game 4 like that, especially when it's the third straight game in a row that the Celtics would have won in this series after the Sixers stole game 1 in Boston. So that's what we're thinking. The only part of my and once again, there were Harden stands on Twitter saying, I understand you have PTSD, Sixers fans, especially in this matchup. But the thing that we've been talking about all year with the Sixers is that this team is a little bit more resilient, and like they went down 5 with 2 minutes left and the game wasn't completely over because they were making hustle plays. They were making the right plays down the stretch. And honestly, like the Harden floater to tie the game is getting very overlooked by the corner 3 because it won the game. But that shot to tie the game is a shot that one, they've never had a guy who can just make that shot in that moment. And 2, the degree of difficulty with 2 defenders around you to hit that from the foul line on a floater to tie the game, to basically get it there. And then on top of that, all the Celtics kind of bad luck in this game towards the end of it, the Smart missing a wide open 3 at the end of regulation, it being a second too late. And another part was there was an Al Horford 3 when you guys were up 1 with like a minute and 30 seconds left, where it rimmed in and out. Like that's a shot that always goes in versus the Sixers in the past, it feels like. Yeah. And they got some lucky breaks in this game and they made the most of it. Like PJ Tucker had a hustle play at the end, which turned into an and one. He got in Joel Embiid's ear, basically telling him. Well,
that was what I was going to say was a huge difference. What I think was
Boomers were right about PJ Tucker. Yeah. I was completely wrong. The Boomers were right. Now, look, does he muck some shit up for the Sixers sometimes? It makes it hard to score in the half court because the Celtics just ignore him. Yes. But also, they've never had a guy who's just like will not like back down to stars and be like, you need to fucking do your job. And that clearly worked because Joel was much better after that.
I honestly credit PJ Tucker with a lot of I almost give him the second most amount of credit behind James Harden for the Sixers not blowing that game, because he was saying, shut the fuck up, you pussies. Let's play some basketball. He's like literally just screaming obscenities at everyone until they fucking won. And you need that guy. That's why I love Marcus Smart so much, because whenever Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown do bozo shit, he's the one who does that for the Celtics. Like, and we'll just, and that's why it drives Bill and Russillo crazy that they were like making some stat that like, did you know that like Marcus Smart has like 15 field goal attempts in the end of like, it's like, yeah, because he has the balls to take those fucking shots and he actually does like pretty well with them. I'm just going to say that. Bill and Russillo need to go to prison.
Smart was a main reason why they came back in that game, to be honest. Like, it was Smart and Tatum that led the comeback down the stretch largely.
And I don't know. Just everyone, I'm not a Malcolm Brogdon guy. And I just like, they're saying like, oh, Malcolm Brogdon's been incredible this whole playoffs. His offensive numbers are like literally identical to Smart's. Like Smart has a higher turnover percentage. It's pretty substantial. It's like 13 for Smart and like 5 for Brogdon. That's a big discrepancy. I will take that with, the defense that Smart provides versus the defense that Malcolm Brogdon provides.
James Harden has been absolutely, anytime they switch Malcolm Brogdon onto James Harden, that is absolute food for him. That's that and the Horford matchup are the two things that have really, like, it's one of the things that's been kind of overlooked is that before this year, the Celtics never really had anyone that you would view as a targetable defender on the court. Last year, that team, when Al was better defensively and you didn't have Brogdon, there weren't very many targets to go after for guys like James Harden. And the switches, like you said, you've talked about it before, the scram switches to avoid those things. Those kind of things, like, in these games, they kind of just give them to him, and it gets Harden in this rhythm where he starts feeling himself when he starts hitting shots and he's seen it going in. And, like, Harden, if you look at the stats, I had a stat earlier about the coverages that Harden has seen so far in this series. And there's a few different coverages when they're guarding Harden, especially in the pick and roll. And there is deep drop, and he's done okay versus deep drop. He's scored 1.02 points per possession. That's all right. In the playoffs, you'll take that. High drop, where they play the drop defender a little bit closer to the level of the screen. He's scored 0.6 points per possession. That's really bad. He's basically been baited into taking a ton of contested threes, and he's missed a lot. And then when they switch, he has gotten 1.5 points per possession, which is insanely good against the Celtics defense, mainly against Al Horford and Malcolm Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon has been switched onto James Harden 7 times in this series in the pick and roll, and he has given up 2 points per possession on those, which is literally just a free bucket every time. Al Horford has done slightly better, but on 9 switches, he's allowed 1.7. So when you're giving him those looks, and he's also able to kind of beat guys in isolation, he took Rob off the dribble a few times. It's going to allow the Sixers to get a little bit more confidence, because the Sixers offense is very different than the Celtics offense. The Celtics offense is built around driving the ball movement, kind of connectivity, open threes, variance, all that shit. The Sixers offense is built around, can Joel Embiid and James Harden save us? And if not, we're fucked, because the role players have been dog shit in this series offensively.
But the other thing here, though, is you're seeing that, like, honestly, in the playoffs, though, that's not bad. It seems like that would be worse, but it's not necessarily. Like, Joel still really hasn't had the game. I have in the prophecy that Game 5 is the Joel game. So,
for anyone who missed this, games 2 to 6 to a T, basically you have predicted so far. 2, it was the get right game for the Celtics, which you called, which was a blowout. 3 was a 12-point Celtics win that was much closer the whole game. You did say that Joel was going to come back and look not great in that game. It was actually game 2 where that happened. And game 4, you called the PJ Tucker game, and it didn't look like a PJ Tucker game, but it kind of was a PJ Tucker game because of what we talked about. And the fact that they win basically on him, like you said, calling everyone, pitch made baby food is at least part of what happened yet. And as Will said in the comments, the Celtics would go 16-3 on their way to a title if PJ Tucker's their head coach.
Yes. That's like that's why we miss Ime Udoka. We just need someone to scream at them. Like, it doesn't need to be anything in particular. I don't know. I mean, like, Bill and Russillo were talking about, like, why doesn't Rob Williams look good? I felt like Simmons said, I thought Rob would have more utility. Why would you think Rob would have more? He's always been dog shit against the Sixers. It's not his matchup.
This is the one matchup that he's not like, and honestly, he is still good in his role. It's just that he's more limited because of the fact that you're not going to want to play him in the Embiid minutes a ton. It gives someone Embiid to roam off of on the other side.
Yeah.
And then on that side, like he's just taking it to Rob every time. And they even let Joel bring the ball up because it pulled Rob. It's similar to what we were talking about after game 2, where I was like, oh, well, the one adjustment I like that Missoula made was whenever we put Embiid on Smart to hide him, when you guys went 5 out, you could just give Smart the ball and it pulls Joel away from the rim. We did the same thing where they just let Joel bring the ball up because Rob's out of the paint. The Sixers cannot score against Rob Williams in the paint or at the rim at all in this series.
I love Rob. I don't, if you're going to commit to playing Malcolm Brogdon inexplicably more than Derek White, like
thank you.
You can't have Rob on the floor with Malcolm Brogdon. It just doesn't, you totally neuter any of the vertical spacing because everyone knows Malcolm Brogdon's not going to fucking pass to Rob, and Rob is just standing there at the rim giving two free defenders to throw at Malcolm Brogdon. I have no idea why. Like, it's the easiest thing in the world.
That is the one thing the Sixers picked up in the scouting report. They're barely even guarding Rob whenever they're guarding that pick and roll because they know that Brogdon isn't going to hit him.
Brogdon's not going to hit him. Like, but the thing is, it just drives me crazy. It's like you have Grant, you have Al. Like every other big can play with Brogdon. Why are you so fucking committed? Like, just start Malcolm Brogdon if you're going to fucking do this. Like, I understand you want to have Derek White for Tyrese Maxey, and I think White's done a great job on Tyrese Maxey. Yeah. I don't, like, I get that Malcolm Brogdon has his points. He hits his threes, but woo fucking who. I'm if the Celtics lose this series, it's Joe Mazzulla playing Malcolm Brogdon more than Derek White. Like, is the issue. I'd just like to see. I don't think Derek White. He might get bullied a little more than by James Harden, but then you can at least shade defenders and like do other things. Like, I just want to see. I want to see more Derek White in this series, and I've had plenty of Malcolm Brogdon things.
We were on the stream yesterday cheering whenever Brogdon was coming in for White, and I actually think after Brogdon played in the first 2 games, I kind of get like he was not missing a shot. Like at home, he was fantastic, and we were like, of course, Malcolm Brogdon's the one. In this game, I was just like, I don't know. I thought Derek White was feeling it a little bit. He hit a few threes. He had Maxey in absolute hell. And honestly, the neutralization of Maxey in this series has been probably the biggest thing that has kind of made it so like when the Sixers half-court offense is actually performing well, it's when they can get all 3 of their leading scorers involved in different ways. Yeah. And it's like, you're running offense through Joel through the post, but you're also having Harden run pick and roll. And then you're having Maxey as this guy that kind of floats around the perimeter and he's able to catch and attack and get into gaps and get to the rim. But the Celtics wings have given him a ton of problem with him just being able to finish over them. He's even like, it's when we talked about it, is like, it's probably a confidence thing at this point for Maxey because he is missing his open threes and wide open threes. A guy who has turned himself into that also might be a little bit of a fatigue issue from him playing real big minutes. Your legs get tired in these games. I understand that you can miss some shots due to that. But like he basically right now, this is shout out to Ransom, who's in the Discord. He said on wide open threes, Maxey is hitting 33% of them. In the regular season, he hits about 45 to 50% of those shots. 6 of his, it's not even like Boston is contesting his 2s, and that's why he's not able to score at the rim, in floater range, whatever, or in the mid range at all. But on the 3s, 6 of his 7 threes that he's taking every single game are open or wide open. And he is hitting 28% of his threes in this series. So that's one thing where I think that the variance will go back, whether it's in game 5 or game 6. Maxey will have a game where he makes 3 or 4 threes, maybe 5 if he gets hot, and that can swing and make the Sixers offense, because the Celtics have been killing them in the half court. The Sixers have, it's funny because you would think that the Celtics would want to kind of push the pace, but they've actually been outscoring the Sixers in the half court as well. So I'm wondering kind of what this comes down to for me is, can the Sixers get Maxey involved? I have no faith in Tobias Harris. He was good in the first game, and he has been pretty terrible since. I've kind of given up on the Sixers' ability to score outside of Joel Embiid and James Harden. And I'm hoping that really what this comes down to is, can Maxey have a little bit bounce back game in terms of variance? And then 2, can Joel Embiid just have a beast mode game? Because like you said, we haven't seen that out of him. And honestly, we've never seen it out of him in the playoffs outside of maybe 1 or 2 games in that Hawks series where I believe he scored 40 points in a game in the Hawks series and dominated. Like, the thing with Joel has always been, he can carry you for 2.5 to 3 quarters, gets down to the fourth because of the injuries, the conditioning stuff. He's tired. He's run down. And this year was the best shape he's ever been in. He gets that injury, and now he's playing through the injury. He doesn't look 100% fully, but like, if the Sixers are going to win this series, they need a beast mode, God mode Joel Embiid game, and they need probably 1 hot shooting game in order to carry them and win, because it's a 3-game series now. And while I think Boston has been the better team, it's
anything can happen.
The Sixers have won both of the really close games. Boston won the one that was kind of close, and then they destroyed them. So now you're getting down to, like, it's just like what we talked about with the Bucks and the Heat, where like you were like, I still think the Bucks are going to come back, and I'm like, but now they have no margin for error, and anything can happen to either of these teams in the next few games. Where, like, as Celtics Matt said, he thinks the Sixers need to lose next game so that the Celtics phone in game 6.
Yeah. I think either way, it's a good, like, I mean, I said my prophecy, I think I said Sixers by 5 next game, because I think it's on brand for the Celtics. The Celtics, because nobody's really going DEFCON on the Celtics, and the Celtics, when there's a team that's like kind of their equal, the way that the Sixers are, they need to have like a scary DEFCON, like, discourse creating loss. Last year they lost game 5 at home to the Bucks. I think it's going to happen again. I think the Celtics are probably going to lose game 5 to the Sixers again. And then I think shout out to Dan, who I think you're in some Sixers chats with, because he said, Sam, if your prediction comes true and the Sixers are up 3-2 and lose game 6 by 30, the way you've predicted, I will never watch the Sixers again. he's like, you have no idea what that would do to my psyche. I would rather them just like lose game 5 and then have to win game 6. Like,
I was gonna say, before, when they were losing yesterday, part of my brain was like, I'd rather have them just get it over with and lose this series in 5. But then I just kept remembering, the Celtics are vulnerable. 2, the league is wide open right now, and that you can't look at past experiences for teams and say that's going to inform whatever happens in the next few games, because we've seen crazy shit already happen in this playoffs, and it's just like the shit that can happen in a 3-game span can literally change who wins the title, as we saw last year as well.
That's like what's happening is, like, Celtics fans are being like, yeah, like, we own the Sixers, like, we beat those. Like, I mean, like, that the confetti series, like the Sixers, there's like 1 guy left on the team from the Sixers from that series. Is it Tobias too?
Oh no, you might be right. I don't think Furkan was over at that point. I think Furkan was a rookie. Furkan was like deep bench, maybe. That might have been his deep bench rookie year. Yeah, I mean, he never plays.
This is like a fundamentally different team, which I think people like don't understand. And like I know people want to clown Joel, and maybe it's not the best time for like Joel defenses right now, but like he's like been hurt, and he's like the MVP. I don't know. I've always respected the Sixers. I've been very consistent on this all year, that the Sixers could absolutely beat the Celtics. Like, that's, I think the Celtics are a better team. I think it's, I think it looks like the Celtics are a better team, but they keep losing close games, and it's a 2-2 series. And now we're in the zone, best of 3 series. Any team can win 2 games. Any team can win 2 games. So this is absolutely up for grabs right now. And I think whoever wins this series has got to be title favorites. I don't know if that's crazy, but that's how I feel right now.
I mean, I look at it like, it's very funny because we've joked about like, what's the funniest thing that can happen?
Yeah.
And the worst fate possible would probably be, I wouldn't say worst fate, because I think the worst fate possible would have been the Sixers losing the series in 5 and not looking competitive after game 1. But the second worst thing that could have happened would be the Sixers finally get through, and then they lose to the Miami Heat, who are the first 8 seed to go to the finals since the 2000 Knicks. That would be especially brutal, mostly because of the Jimmy Butler thing, because we'd have to hear about for for the rest of my life, we would have to hear about how we let Jimmy Butler
Tobias Harris over me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is definitely the thing that happened.
Yeah, that's
but like, look, even with all the things that happened with Joel yesterday, he was, in my opinion, in the first half at least, I mean, it was him and Harden were carrying the team. And that's kind of what this has come down to. There are two series happening right now, the Nuggets and the Suns, and the Sixers and the Celtics, where I think the Nuggets are the better team, and I think the Celtics are the better team. But there are two guys on each of those teams. Devin Booker's been in another stratosphere.
He's incredible, dude. He's
compared to Harden and Embiid, even he's been on the greatest heater I've ever seen in my life.
Russillo said we compared him to Kobe, which is blasphemy. Yeah, it is blasphemy. He's better than Kobe. This is better than anything Kobe has ever done. I'm going to say it right now. Like, I'm sorry. Like, this is incredible. Kobe never had a 70 true shooting percentage. His true shooting percentage was like 30, but the Lakers would win or something like that.
Devin Booker has shot, I believe, Will, you could correct me on this if I'm wrong, but as of last night in the fourth quarter, he was in his 2 games in Phoenix, he had shot a 91% true shooting between those 2 games. And the thing with Booker, it's so funny because you bring up the Kobe thing. I remember a year ago, I said in our group TM, I said, Devin Booker's still only 25. What's holding him back from being this generation's Kobe? And everyone was like, what? And I was like, dude, like from a shot. And now look, Kobe played in a much less efficient era. He wasn't as good of a shooter as Devin Booker is, but just from a pure late game shot making perspective, from a self-creation standpoint of constant
confidence. A confidence
every single year, getting better on defense, getting better at passing. He honestly, like early in his career, he was a good shooter. He's an elite shooter now, and he has gotten better at every element of his game. The takes from the early shit with him are going to age probably worse than any player in the history of the NBA. Between he's not a winning player, to advanced players saying that he's empty, and advanced stats guys saying he's empty calories. It was always very confusing to me because I know he was famous for that game against the Celtics when he scored like 70 points and most of it was fake because they like got him to the line a ton and whatever. But the thing about this like kind of leap, I don't think Sixers fans are really all that surprised by this, because even if you look at stats from like, I remember watching Booker in like 2017 and being like, this guy's incredible. How is he 21? Like, it just like, he was so good in his career, which he has gotten slowly better and better. And now he averages upwards of 30 points a game. He averages like 31 points a game in his career against the Sixers. He has always been a Sixers killer. So I don't really think Sixers fans are surprised by this, but the heater that he is on right now is, I've never seen something. And I know that some of it, you could say like, oh, well, you know, the Clippers defense wasn't very good. And, you know, Denver always gives up these because they're vulnerable defensively because of the scheme and because of Jokic and blah, blah, blah.
That they two guys who can score right now. Dude, it's no help. Yeah.
It's 2 players taking on an entire team with the 2-time MVP who just scored 53 fucking points last night, and they outscored it. Like, it was after, I think the Nuggets win the series, but I don't think that it's going to be a destruction because after game 2, because the Nuggets are just so much better at home than they are on the road. Like, they shoot better at home. They have the altitude, which I know people don't think that matters, but I'm telling you, it fucking does. Especially in late game situations when guys are tired, that 100% is a beneficial thing.
Look at their road splits. Like,
like they're used to it, and like honestly, like that's a massive advantage, and that's probably why I think the Nuggets still end up winning the series. But like now you're in a 3-game situation in that series where you have to hope that Devin Booker doesn't continue what I would define as the greatest 3-week heater I've ever seen in my life. Dude, he's shooting 61% from the field on mostly jumpers in the playoffs. Like, it's like 61-52 splits from 3.
This is like almost Steph-like. I mean, it's like different. Yes. It's like a fusion of Kobe and Steph, just in terms of like the fusion. I don't know. You know what you were mentioning, like Booker takes like aging badly. Well, one very funny because I think this is one of the only times where KOC gets to defeat Verno in combat. KOC was always on Devin Booker quarter back to the day, and Verno always made fun of him and called him a losing player. Another one is, do you remember when Bill Simmons made a huge deal about Devin Booker not going to Team USA?
Yep.
And said that the Celtics
2019.
Yeah.
Booker's never really played in big games before. It would be nice for him to play in some games that matter. Instead, he's going to pick up at LA Fitness and yelling about double teams.
Well, it's just so funny because Tatum has like blossomed into being like one of like the best case scenarios you could possibly wish for your chart. And I think it's pretty clear. Like right now, Booker is better. Like I think Booker is better. I would just like put that out. Definitely in this playoffs. Like there's no doubt.
He's been the best player.
I don't know. I just think it's funny how like just different that all like gets treated and the defense level. I guess it also just goes to show you like how like guys you can be good at defense. You just really have to like fucking try.
And he does have decent tools, but he was pretty terrible early in his career. So I still think that in order to become a neutral defender, like there's a lane for most guys unless they have a physical limitation that can make them into at least a neutral defender. And like he has worked really hard on that end and has actually become a really good defender.
Yeah. So I think I don't know. I mean, I have no idea what's going on in the West anymore. I had kind of resigned myself to the Nugget because I watched like some of those Nuggets Suns games and I was like, oh my God, this is over. This is Jover. This is like if I were in Suns DMs, I would have been game 2. It's Jover. We're Barack. Game 4. So right. I have no idea what's going to happen in that series. I still don't know how the Lakers keep winning. I'm insane to me. Whatever. I guess we'll see. I might be owned, but if the Warriors lose this series, to me, it means that the Warriors were way worse than I thought, and by extension, the Kings, because I just cannot accept that the Lakers are good. I don't think this team is good.
I was going to say, if you go back, of all of my takes pre-playoffs, none have aged worse than after the play-in. I was like, I don't think the Lakers are good. And now they have made light work of Memphis, who we always thought were a little bit Mickey, but like,
bad. They were also bad. And that was also a bad matchup for them.
Sure. Bad matchup, all those things.
Yeah.
But the Lakers have taken care of business. And like, if they win tonight, do you know who the corgi on TikTok who does the the dog?
Yeah, I know the dog. Yeah.
He predicted that the Lakers were going to go up 3-1 and then the Warriors were going to come back and win the series in 7.
That dog has me fighting for my life in the prediction game. Like he and I are dueling right now.
I was going to say that dog predicted 3-1 Lakers go up. And could you imagine Steph having a 3-1 comeback against LeBron?
I kind of want that to happen, to be honest now. Like I kind of really want that to happen. That would be very I mean, it would make Warriors fans happy, which is like a cardinal sin.
Sure,
but I'd find my way around. I'd like, oh, that's good for you.
But you have Lakers, like it's
exactly.
You're a Celtics fan, like of course you want Lakers fans to be sad too.
Oh, that'd be incredible.
But there was another element of all this with the Nuggets Suns that I really did not even think about, and Rose brought this up to me on Twitter. And they were basically saying that, hold on one second, I'm pulling it up now. But basically, this would be the second time that KD has gone to a team. So first off, we have the Simmons-Russillo thing that was Simmons twisting the knife in Russillo's back about Chris Paul being the ultimate Ewing theory guy. If the Suns win this series and he misses these 3 games in the middle of it, and they win 3, 4, 5. And honestly, okay, I generally think Ewing theory is kind of bullshit. And I'm shocked that Bill hasn't pulled one out for Embiid after the first 3 games of the series. But I generally think the Ewing theory stuff is bullshit. But this might be the one case where I think there might be an argument, and here's why. When you remove Chris Paul from the rotation, you're replacing him automatically with a guy who's going to shoot more threes than Chris Paul. And what has been the Suns' problem through the Clippers series, through the first 2 games of this series, the Nuggets were just destroying them in the variance game. Like the Suns were getting good looks, but they were all from 2. They were all mid-rangers. They couldn't get to the rim. They couldn't shoot threes. They changed their game plan. They've been getting downhill more. They've been playing offensive first guys. Last night they played Landry Shamet and TJ Warren and even Terrence Ross, who owned me. And also shout out to George Niang, who's been destroying me this entire series. Being arguably the 3rd or 4th best player on the Sixers in this series. But my point on this is that, like, 1, you have that element of Chris Paul with the Ewing theory. And then 2, you also have, if Booker goes on this historical heater where he just drags the Suns with this basically 2, like, DeAndre Ayton's been terrible. Like, he has not been good at all. And part of that is he's going up against Jokic. And another part of it is just he's not quite as good as people thought that he was. And the thing is that he would essentially be dragging this with KD as a second guy. And it would essentially make it so that KD never beats the allegations of being the number 1 guy on his own team to win a title. Yeah. Between Steph and Booker, you compared it to Steph in terms of the shooting. And I mean, it would just be, there would be so many funny narratives to come out of this if the Suns won this series. Because I think if they win this series, they have a real shot to win the title, despite the fact they only have 2 fucking players.
Especially if they're playing the Heat in the finals.
God damn it. That would just be so dejecting, dude.
Are we going to talk about the real possibility of a bubble Final Four repeat?
I mean, at this point, I said yesterday on the stream, if the series had held, because it was 2-1 across the board at that point, with all the bubble Final Four teams leading their series 2-1. Right now, I mean, look, maybe the Knicks steal one tonight, and the Knicks, I think the Knicks are fucked. I feel worse about the Knicks than I felt about the Suns after 2 games in this series. Like, the Knicks, like, there has to be a conversation about Julius Randle, because, like, I feel bad because he's a really good regular season player and he made me look stupid, but, like, we're now in the second time where, dude, he shoots 33% from the field in his career in the playoffs. Like, he just can't be one of your top guys if you want to win multiple playoff series. And he has no answer for the Heat right now. Offensively, they look stuck in the mud. Part of that is also, I think, Jalen Brunson's limitations as a lead shot creator that the Cleveland Cavaliers weren't quite able to figure out in the same way as the Miami Heat have been able to. And Jimmy, we knew Jimmy was going to come back, and after he had the fucking Silence of the Lambs music playing in his head after they almost beat them in Madison Square Garden without Jimmy Butler, and then he comes back and has a dynamite first half, and the game is never really a game in the second half. I kind of think that series, like, I kind of think you can, I'm not going to say put it in pen because anything can happen. One ankle twist, one fucking weird shooting game from the Knicks. Maybe Thibs finally wakes up and realizes that his starting 5 that he played all year. Like, I love Josh Hart. Don't get me wrong. We've talked up Josh Hart all the time. I think Josh Hart is a legit winning player.
Yeah. But
when you need shooting, you probably should put Quentin Grimes in over him in the starting lineup, because Barrett and Randall are just not hitting their shots right now. And you need as much spacing as possible. And we learned this from the Cavs series. Like, you need, Hart isn't hitting his shots, and he needs to be a bit player off the bench in this series until that you can have enough shooting on the court in order to beat this Miami Heat team.
They can't keep getting away with it.
They're getting away with it.
They can't keep getting away with it. God damn it.
You know how Sixers fans are going to feel? If we lose this series, it's going to be 3rd time in 4 years as the Celtics and the Heat, our 2 main, not rivals, but like teams that we've been trying to beat for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And they're both back in the Eastern Conference Finals again. Like,
God, I mean, I don't like, God, I want, no, God, fucking, I mean, because here's the thing. This would be the ultimate test of, like, how far can rat mode go?
Yes.
Like, if it's Celtics Heat, because the Celtics are like 3 tiers higher in talent. Again, like this is the biggest talent discrepancy there's ever been between the Celtics and the Heat. Like,
sure,
if that series like even goes 7, Eric Spoelstra is like I think unquestionably like the greatest coach of all time. Like,
I mean,
Spo is like a little bit of a Duncan merchant, like at least a little bit, you know, like
Pop.
Or Pop, sorry. Pop's at least a little bit of a Duncan merchant. I feel like Phil Jackson, like he's had just like some of the like most talented guys. Like his thing was mostly like being an asshole in like a relatively not controversial way. But like I think Spo is like genuinely like just a fucking the Napoleon of goddamn coaching. Like,
yeah, we said it's like having an extra star having Spo as your coach, because like I'm watching a game where they're playing in Madison Square Garden and Gabe Vincent looks like fucking Steph Curry. Like I just like I don't understand how he gets the most out of these undrafted guys. These guys they find on the fringes, like they've been just giving him shit for years and he's been making fucking gold out of it. Like
it's so crazy when you think back to like the first team, basically the first team he fucking coached was the LeBron James, like the fucking team, and everyone was like, "Oh, this guy, he's just being like they treated him like he was like JB Bickerstaff or something like that, you know."
Sure.
Like, he's like I don't know, man, he's something else. I mean, all credit to Spo. I mean, it also helps that Jimmy is just a absolute fucking wide-eyed psychopath. Like I feel like Clint Eastwood should do a movie about Jimmy Butler at some point. I feel like Clint and Jimmy would like get along on like a very like personal level. Like they need to look into that, you know, like how the Softies brought in like Kevin Garnett to like play himself. I think like they should just have Jimmy Butler in like a movie about like fighting the cartel, like playing himself, and Jimmy just like he beats the cartel by like waking up earlier than them and like getting into the gym earlier. Is that is what I want. I want that movie. Clint, if you're listening, could be
honestly you could probably make a movie out of Jimmy's life at this point. Jesus Christ, being like homeless and going to junior college and you know, fucking grinding his way, like literally mindset his way to the top of the NBA. I cannot believe that the Heat have found a superstar who's just so perfect for their military propaganda culture, and it's really working. It's working amazingly for both of them. They have literally pulled themselves up by their bootstraps as an 8 seed and gotten to the top 1%.
I do kind of want Heat Celtics just because like that's like a worst case scenario for Bill, where he's on the side of like the soft baby talented ones, and like the Heat are like the scrappy like 9 season ending injuries. Our superstar like rolled his ankle into oblivion on the other side. I mean, we've all got to be rooting for that at least a little bit, you know.
Well, I'm more if the Sixers win this series, I'm absolutely like everyone keeps saying, oh, the winner of the Sixers Celtics is probably going to win the finals. We did this last year with the Celtics Bucks too, by the way. And all it really takes is whatever Devin Booker's doing right now, whatever Jimmy Butler's doing right now, whatever Nikola Jokic is doing right now, to upend one of these teams that seems like the best team because of these preconceived notions that we have about them in the regular season and in the playoffs and whatever. But like, I kind of think that if the Sixers get out, like it's absolutely not going to be a cakewalk to beat this Miami Heat team, which is an insane sentence because I wanted them in the first round at one point. Like I was like, get it out of the way, beat your demons. You're a better team than them. And I
wasn't scared. Like, because that was supposed to be who the Celtics were playing. And I was like, no, they're done. They're dead.
No, it's over. Yeah.
It's Joe.
They probably would have pushed you guys to 7 in the first round if you played because of some insane.
And that would have, and without knowing what we know now, everyone would have been like, holy shit, the Celtics are paper.
Celtics aren't very good. So, and in fairness to Giannis, because Nihilus Bucks did bring this up, and he was like, it is kind of bullshit that Giannis is getting flamed for playing through an injury.
Yeah.
He probably would. And it's like, I've seen this happen with Embiid too, where they play through an injury and they look like shit, and then it's bad for their legacy. But Giannis has the ring to fall back on. Like, Giannis has the run to fall back on.
It's kind of happening with Embiid right now. Like, he's hurt right now. Like, you know, like, I don't know. It's always all that stuff. It's always like not fair, any of this stuff. I mean, I think I would love to slander Giannis, but Giannis is largely innocent. I feel like it's a crime of the front office and Bud. That what happened in that series. So I
mean, I'm not. Once again, I said after they lost the series, I still think he's the best two-way player in the league. I thought the way that they framed everything was just funny with the whole failure thing. But
yeah, exactly.
I just like, we have to talk about, before we move on to anything else. First off, let's talk about two things in that Nugget series. Jokic had 53 points, and the Nuggets lost. I believe that they are now 0-3 in games when he scores at least 40 points. Now, keep in mind, in the playoffs. Now, keep in mind,
Jokic Levine.
Nikola
Levine. Yeah, Nikola Levine, yeah.
Jokic, Nikola Sexton.
It's interesting how, by the way, Bill and Russillo were just sucking Jokic off. Like,
okay, I want to talk about that.
Yeah,
I want to get into that in a second.
Okay.
But I do think, in fairness to Jokic in this argument, he did have 39 points in game 2 when they won that game. He had 39, 16, and 5, and went 17 of 30 from the field, and they won that game. So it's not like him scoring a lot means that they can't win the games. But I think that when you get into these situations, because their offensive rating when he was on the court last night was like a 135. Like, it was like the average in the playoffs right now. Even this broke my mind.
It's got to be like 112 or something like
122
that.
is the average. Is the average.
I figured all those like Cleveland Knicks Heat games would
drag
like
it down.
Throw it. Yeah, but
I looked it up because I'm worried about the Sixers offense, because that's the one thing that I've been a little bit worried that we have like a 117 offensive rating, I think, in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And the league average is 122 right now. And
Christ.
I mean, that's what it said on StatView. So I'm basing it off of what I saw on StatViews. That does feel high, so maybe that's wrong. But I think that this Phoenix Suns series, the Suns Nuggets series, and the Warriors Kings series might have really skyrocketed that, because they've had some games in the 120s and shit like that. I still don't really know. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I don't know how that's true. I feel like I have to double check this, because hold on, maybe that's the regular. No, there's no way.
No, it can't be the regular season.
No.
I mean, it has been high scoring, because I keep noticing how many of these games are like 120.
Yeah.
But I would think it would make it like 110 or something like that, or 112 or somewhere in there. But I don't know. That's my instinct. But I think that, you know, kind of while you're looking that up.
No, I was way wrong. Sorry, my bad. It's 113. I apologize.
Pretty close.
112, very close. Yeah, that was completely wrong. I read the first thing I saw, and that was based on a certain series had a 122, but it's 113, which is still pretty high for.
That's still really high. That's still really high.
When you get to the playoffs, the offensive ratings always fall off a cliff, because they don't call as many fouls and the pace is slower.
If you don't know what offensive rating is, by the way, like, it's a very easy stat. That's just what someone scores in a game.
100 possessions per 100
per 100 possessions.
Sure.
So, like, and every game is like usually a little higher than that. Like, it's usually between like 108 and like 115 in like a, you know, average game. So,
it's a good ballpark.
Yeah. So, but you think about, like, you know, it's like a pretty much, so that just helps to help you make sense of what that means. So that, I mean, like, look, scoring is way up. Defense, just like, I mean, maybe this is part of the rule change. Maybe part of this is like everyone kind of catching up to Warriors ball, and like kind of, you know, not everyone's trying to like necessarily imitate Warriors ball anymore, but like people are just kind of getting smarter about like how to like integrate their specific players into making like an offense that like makes sense. Like what were the bad offenses that like made the playoffs? Like Cleveland, who was
good in the regular season, they were just terrible.
Yeah. It was like Cleveland and like Was there another like bad offense that I can't think of? I guess the Heat, yeah.
The Heat had the bottom 6 offense.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's
a bottom 6 offense, and they're going to go to the Eastern Conference Finals.
God, more demon magic, but like every other team is like an extremely potent offense. Like I think the Sixers are probably the next worst offense, and what they were like 15th or 16th or something like that. Or
no, we were top 5 in offense this year.
Really?
I think
we were top in defense. Weren't you number 1 in defensive efficiency?
No. That was the Bucks.
Oh, what am I thinking?
The Bucks and the Cavs were the 2 best defensive teams, and they went out early.
I'm getting 3-point shooting confused. You guys were the best 3-point shooting.
We were the best 3-point shooting team. Yeah. This year in offense, we were 7th, and I believe we were 7th in hold on, yeah, we were 7th, and we were 5th in wait, were we?
Defensive rating. Well, I mean, anyway, Kings, Warriors, Celtics, the Bucks.
Oh, this is the playoffs. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. But yeah.
Also, I guess I think the Bucks were not a good offense either, but they lost. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is kind of what we're seeing is like maybe the old adage about defense, that like maybe that's the big difference is you just have to have a hyper potent offense to go anywhere. I guess the Lakers are the other bad offense in here.
Yes, but they were better in the second half of the season after they made those trades, and they're still not quite as potent. So in the regular season, the Sixers had I believe they had a top 5 offense. Hold on, it's loading right now. But we were 3rd in offense this year.
Jeez. Celtics were 2nd, right? Behind the Kings.
The Celtics were 4th.
4th. Shit.
And you had the 3rd best defense. By the end of the year, we had the 10th best defense. So just all of this kind of leading me back to the conversation that we were having about the Denver-Phoenix series, which is 2 explosive offenses, especially when Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are making shots the way that they are right now. I saw some Nuggets fan getting mad at Jamal Murray, which, to be fair, there's one guy I follow on. Shout out to Connor. He's very, very funny. He's a Nuggets fan, but he does the doomer thing every single game, even when the Nuggets are winning. And he was complaining, and a lot of Nuggets fans were complaining about Jamal. And I was like, when you have Devin Booker on what I would classify as the greatest heater I've ever seen in the playoffs, and then the other team also has Kevin Durant, and then you have Jokic who's scoring 53, he hit 39 earlier in the series. He's basically having a triple-double almost every other game, and is also making some really tough shots, and he's been playing at a high level of offense. Comparatively, Jamal Murray's probably going to look kind of shitty. And I think what I took from that game is that, like, I saw some people trolling, like, oh, the Suns have a math problem. And I'm like, the Suns took and made more threes in that game than the Nuggets did. The Nuggets went into they saw the single coverage with Jokic, and Jokic was just taking Ayton or Landale to town, and he was just fucking killing them in the post, which is great, obviously, because you're getting high level outcomes from those possessions. He scores 53. They have a 135 offensive rating, but the Suns became the team that leaned into, especially in that second half when Landry Shamet caught fire, just putting up a bunch of threes and making it so that they could basically kind of bring the math back in their favor. And they've been attacking the basket way more in this series. And I think I would be less, if I'm a Nuggets fan, if I'm a Jokic defender, I would not be worried at all. Like, his offense has been incredible. The only thing I'd be worried about is their defense. Just have the Suns figured out a way to, without Chris Paul, balance it out so that they can get downhill more. They can get to the line more. They got a pretty good whistle in that game yesterday. They've been attacking the rim way more. They've basically only been letting Booker and Durant cook for mid-range, which is what the plan should have been from the jump. And that has kind of swayed the favor back in there, because, like, I don't think that the single coverage versus Jokic is a sustainable plan when the Nuggets have decided we're just going to let Jokic fucking go off and score 50 or 60 points or whatever. I don't think that's going to be sustainable if the Nuggets play better defense at home, but if you can get them to take 23s in a game, limit how many times they can get to the line, you might be able to rig the math back in your favor. And like this series is basically going to come down to is who carries in the last few games. Is it Booker or is it Jokic? And I can't believe that we're talking about a series that has Kevin Durant in it, and he's an afterthought, basically, despite playing at an insane level, too. Like, since game 2, he's been on fire as well.
Well, I was going to say, like, everyone was like, Kevin Durant had like 40 points, and everyone was like, this guy, yeah. It was like, yeah, he kind of got free. That it was saying that he was basically like living in Booker's shadow, like he was collecting Booker's crumbs. It was like how he like got his 40, which is like so funny. Like,
well, Jokic scored 53 on 20 of 30, and I believe Devin Booker has missed 9 shots in the last 2 games.
Jesus fucking Christ, man! Like, I mean, who knows? Who knows with that series, man? Like,
is it bad defense or is it just insane offense? Because there are sometimes I watch and I go, yeah, it's kind of shitty defense. Like that game was kind of shitty defense. Like they were. When you watch the teams that decide to go single coverage, not that, by the way, they never go single coverage against Embiid in the playoffs because, one, the Sixers have kind of changed his game a little bit to make him more face-up so that the entire defense can set in front of him, which is kind of hard to score against. Mm-hmm. But 2, when they go single coverage against Jokic, Jokic is able to seal his man and get a bucket right under all the time. And the Suns are just letting him get that. And it's a completely different equation as opposed to when you're trying to score from the perimeter as a big man. And he's been effective doing that as well. Like, he's had an insane series. But yeah, Devin Booker scored 36 on 14 of 18 shooting, 12 assists. The game before scored 47 on 20 of 25 shooting and had 9 assists. So, like, once again, this series comes down to Booker and Jokic. Who ends up dragging their team across the finish line, because it's been an insane performance. And some of it is shitty defense, but I think most of it is just unstoppable players in terms of offensive production. And I just want to say, last thing here, we have to talk about the Jokic versus Matt Ishbia thing, even though the league has already come out and said they're not suspending Jokic. I thought that people's takes on this were pretty funny. I don't know if you listened to Kirk Goldsberry on Low Post, but him and Russillo kind of both said the same thing. First off, I love Bill's obsession with Bill has an obsession with Ishbia. First off, he loves Ishbia because Ishbia came on the podcast, new owner syndrome, the beef with Dan Gilbert, all that shit. He loves all of it.
Yeah.
He said he kept bringing up, didn't you look into Ishbia, who he was as a player? He was like a real instigator. I looked it up. Matt Ishbia played 115 minutes in his college career over the course of 3 years for the Michigan State Spartans. He never played in real games. Kirk Goldsberry and Ryan Russillo both said on their podcast, well, he's comfortable with the ball. So he grabbed the ball. He's comfortable with it. And I'm like, he hasn't played in a meaning basketball game in like 25 years.
He's had adrenochrome in his hands more often than a basketball. Allegedly, parody satire. I don't know. I think, yeah, all this stuff is like pretty funny. I mean, I don't know. Like, does it really matter? You know, like I think I could kind of smell the Adam Silver on this one when Ishbia came out and was like, no, don't suspend him. Like,
yeah, he got a phone call.
Don't
suspend Jokic. Yeah.
It's like you have to. You are in trouble if you don't do this. I'm also kind of surprised the league didn't fine Ishbia too. That's a little weird that they fined Jokic and not Ishbia.
Well, Jokic has a history, you know, of the Draymond thing, right?
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, the poor Morris twins were targeted.
Oh wait, yeah. Why isn't Jokic suspended? That's weird.
That's
find that quite interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, very. Well, that was what I wanted to talk about like what I heard Bill and Russillo talking about, just going insane on Jokic and like here's like praising him and how amazing he is.
I love him.
He's so good. He's so good. Like, and like he is good, but I don't know, something about it like rubs me the wrong way when you like kill some guys. Like they were pretty sparse with their praise for James Harden, who is almost single-handedly the reason why the Sixers are in their series.
Sure.
and he's completely flipped the script on what everyone was killing him for. Like, Harden has showed up in very big moments this entire series. Like, I almost think he's almost beat the allegations for his career in my mind, like with those 2 performances, to be honest.
Legacy performances.
Yeah. Like, and I guess just the fact that, I mean, I get it. He had a huge game, whatever, but the fact that he's immediately dismissed from that, and just completely separated, like, it's not like Jokic is like playing with the Cavs or the Suns just in terms of talent around it. You know what I'm saying? Like he's got really good players. Like, we ran through last podcast. Like,
I like a lot of their guys. Yeah,
they have like perfectly serviceable guys. They've got Jamal Murray is like a good player, and it's just like, I don't know, why does Jokic? It just seems like Jokic gets all the credit all the time, and I get it. Like, he's the fulcrum, he's the thing, but like in all these other series, like Embiid and Harden are obviously the batteries, but we find times to talk about Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris and all these other guys. Like, why is it never about Kentavious Caldwell-Pope or Jamal Murray or, Michael Porter Jr. heard that Devin Booker was shot making and got very upset because he hates when people make shots.
I don't know if you saw the Michael Porter Jr. shot at the end of the game last night. That was a real Denzel Valentine moment of, oh my God, what is he doing?
Oh, no.
So here's the thing. I've talked about the Jokic kind of what I view as a double standard in terms of talking about him. I do think that in this case, I understand why they're doing it. The one thing that I think that it was funny to me that they complained about the hot topic sports media.
That was awesome.
And Priscilla at least had the self-awareness to be like, we kind of do that too. Like, all this shit we talk, all this shit that we do, it's fun to be reactionary.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't want a reactionary podcast, there are plenty of podcasts you can go out there and listen to that are not our podcast or Bill's podcast or anything like that. It's fun to be reactionary in the playoffs. Like, I'm sorry, you're living game to game, day to day, whatever.
Yeah.
When it's someone that they like, for example, Chris Paul with Russillo, it's always benefit of the doubt. Let's zoom out, look at the whole thing, whatever, but in a positive light, right? Like, let's never overreact to like a terrible Chris Paul game.
Yeah.
James Harden, when he has a good game, they do the same thing. Well, let's zoom out. Elimination games, not showing up at clutch moments and And look, all the allegations have mostly been true for Harden until this series, really. Like, the fact that he has single-handedly basically won the Sixers 2 games with some insane shot making. It's a
high leverage, by the way. The series is over if the Sixers lose that game yesterday. I'm pretty comfortable.
It's completely over.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I think them now, Bill's gone back and forth on this a lot. I think the fact that he's already changed his mind from, man, I wish I just voted for Jokic, to, you know what? Actually, Embiid was the regular season MVP.
That drove me insane because it's like, you're a fucking coward. Just vote for Jokic, because that's what they don't want to do. They want to have it both ways. They want to be able to complain about it, but
Russillo was right in terms of, just because Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the playoffs every year doesn't mean that he wins the regular season MVP every single year. And the NFL is more, they don't get the historical kind of, what do they say, the voting fatigue that the NBA does. I think Mahomes has already won 3 MVPs in his career. But like, he basically was saying, like, just because the guy was the best that we do, the last game we saw, we thought he was the best player. The last series we saw, he was the best player. Doesn't mean we should retroactively give him the MVP. Like, that isn't really how and he also has to do that a little bit because he voted for Giannis. But my whole thing on this is, I actually think offensively, dude, Jokic actually absolutely has an argument for best player in the league right now. Like, he's been unfathomably good in the playoffs. Like, he's been amazing. And I think that some of it is, especially in round 1, Jamal Murray was making some insane shots in close games. Very similarly to how Embiid has needed Harden to kind of do it for them right now. I totally get that. I think one, he is the golden child. I've talked a little bit about the racial stuff before, but I do think that I genuinely think that they really do just like Jokic as a player, and they're willing to say that they're going to give him some runway until he can have kind of a legacy run for himself, because he's 28 years old or something, and he hasn't really had a lot of opportunities because of the injuries on his team. But the one thing I will say is that, and once again, he's also going up against an insane opponent right now. But the guard thing with the Nuggets on the defensive end, like, if they play the Warriors, I think that they make light work of the Lakers, to be honest. I think that's going to be a good matchup for them, and I think they win that series. But if you get into a situation where Devin Booker is having one of the greatest shot-making series I've ever seen, Anthony Edwards just did, Donovan Mitchell did it against them before. How many fucking teams have done this against them in the playoffs, where the guard on the other team, Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, like, just insane shot-making series where their averages are just completely inflating, that defensively you might have to look at Jokic and be like, okay, what are we looking at here? Because this thing, while the offense is amazing, defensively there might be some holes that you can poke in Denver in the playoffs at the highest levels. And is it just because he's so good on offense that we can completely ignore the defense? Because if they go on to win this title, then that is the case. And that's been my argument, is that I think that they can, mainly because of the Jokic-Murray two-man game, they can make an offense good enough to win the finals, similar to how Steph and the Warriors did. But I still need to see it before I can say this guy's completely like bulletproof, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I just think for me, I don't know what my there's just something about Jokic's like game, and I think it's part of it is that he is very fascinating, and the way he plays is like very endearing to like real like hoop heads. You know what I'm saying? Like the guys who post tape, you know, the guys who do 7 million threads about Spain pick and roll or whatever the fuck is, you know, like going on. Like Jokic is incredible. He's fun to watch for like a lot of the passing stuff and everything. I'm really not trying to like first take this at all, because I fully understand all the consequences. I mean, I was just saying last game, you know, that like I think that they're, you know, that they look like I mean, they're world beaters like 2 games ago, you know, like, and they still look pretty good. Like Devin Booker has had to like literally will the Suns to where they are at right now. I always have had with the Nuggets and with Jokic, just like this skepticism. And it's like, whenever I step back and I like look at the numbers, I'm like, you know, it's like, fuck, they do have all these like players who are like pretty good. Jokic is like you know, you can't really argue with the numbers, which is why nerds go fucking insane when you don't give him MVP. Like there's all kinds of stuff there. There is just something there. I really can't place my finger on it. And I'm doing like, this is a very Bill take of me to make, but like, something is off with the Nuggets. That there's something there that I just don't quite like buy, and just in terms of like I don't know, from like a paper tiger perspective. I negate all of this if they're playing the Lakers, in which case they are absolutely authentic. And
well, I've talked about this before, and I've gotten shit from a lot of Sixers fans. I've gotten shit from a lot of people in the Discord, in that I think that there is a case to be made. You could probably make the same case. I guess you can't really make the same case for Joel, because we've seen bigs like Joel before. Like we've seen like guys not quite like Joel. Like Joel is this era's version of center X or whatever.
Right.
That has been like that like Hakeem, if he were to play now, would play differently. Like,
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Every center from that back then would play differently if they played in this era. You could compare David Robinson to Embiid. You could compare Patrick Ewing. There are a lot of guys that have similarities that would play differently in this era. The Jokic thing is more like, I guess because he is, I guess really since Bill Walton, we haven't seen a center hub pass first big man that also can score like crazy. In terms of like being like the main hub on a championship team. But I said this before, where I'm like, 10 years ago, the common thought was you can't win a title just on jump shooting. And then Steph broke the barrier, right? Like Steph and the Warriors tore all that down, and it was like, actually, you can completely win a title on jump shooting, and it's going to be the most important thing in the NBA now. Yeah. I'm not saying that Jokic and the Nuggets are that, but it is one of those things where we just have to see it first. Like, I don't know if you can win, like, if you can win 4 series. I think you can beat really good teams. I think you can win multiple playoff rounds like he already has, being the center, being the main guy. I don't know if you can win against, we'll see how he plays against, if it's Boston in the finals, if it's Philly in the finals in the next round. Can they finally beat the Warriors? I know I think they've only played them once in a series, but that has always been an issue because of the jump shooting on that team. For a center that is, you know, kind of ground bound, is not going to want to guard in space a ton. Like, I think the offensive stuff is pretty bulletproof now, though. Well, like the playoff, I know that they haven't had the best defenses they're going up against, but like they're pretty solid. Like, I mean, like the Suns, not really, but like the Timberwolves, like at least have defensive infrastructure, and they've kind of made light work of them. So,
well, and to your point, and the point we were making earlier too, like maybe it's just that I'm looking at their defense and just like, you know, I just have it beaten into my like bones that like this is Fugazi. Like this is going to come back to bite you at some point. Yeah.
And I get it. I mean,
well, and it's funny because I was beating the King's drum, you know, and said I didn't care, you know, like this is, you know, but we just went through it, you know, maybe this is the start of something new. Like maybe this is the new barrier in the era, and maybe we're finally getting to the point where it's just offense is, you know, just defense just matters less than offense. And this is, you know, teams like the Bucks are going to wilt. Teams like the Celtics that are balanced are going to be a little shakier, and these high-powered offenses are just going to perform better than we, you know, expect them to. And the Heat will continue to be demons.
Kind of how the offensive explosion, like we haven't seen an offensive first team win a title still. Like, okay, so I should rephrase that. We haven't seen an offensive first team that doesn't have a great defense win the title. Like,
I was going to say, we
were that.
Yeah. We've never seen a team that was like their offense was like 7 places higher than their defense in like league rating or something, like win, you know, like I don't even think we've seen like an elite offense and like a mid-league defense, because the Warriors were always I think the Warriors almost had better defenses than offenses every year. Like I think I'm right about that. Maybe I think the Iguodala Warriors were always a better defense than they were an offensive team, but
it was really good. So and now look, you need to take competition into account here. You need to take all this shit into account, right? Mm-hmm. The Nuggets have the 4th best playoff offense right now, right behind Phoenix, funny enough, who, you know, they played the Clippers in the first round, and now they're playing Denver, who they've kind of figured out at least over the last 2 games. And then actually they have the 3rd best. Boston has number 1 because New Orleans was also included in here, but New Orleans lost in the play-in. So Boston is 1, Phoenix is 2, Denver is 3. Do you know who has the number 1 net rating so far in the playoffs?
Let me think about this. Is it the Lakers?
It's the Denver Nuggets.
I guess that makes sense. They were playing the Wolves.
Plus 7.2. But like, and they were playing the Wolves without McDaniels and Reed. So like that's certain. And like the first game they destroyed them. And then I think they've had 2 blowouts in game 1 with both of their series, if I remember correctly. But like, even with, I'm looking at the defensive rankings right now. They have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th ranked defense in the playoffs. And they are a plus 7.2 because the offense is just so high powered at all times. And I do think that there also is something to the fact that, like, once again, they're good without Jokic on the court in terms of their offense is bad, but their defense is actually really, really good when Jokic is off the court in the playoffs this year. Some of that is small sample size stuff, but some of it is just they go small with Gordon at the 5, and they have a lot of good, versatile, switchable defenders that can kind of muck things up. And that has also benefited them, but it's a much smaller amount of minutes and a lower level of competition, I would imagine, if your best players on the bench, their best players probably on the bench as well. So it's something that we need to see still to believe it, but like we could be witnessing a shift at least where it's like offense just matters so much more. Like you said, that like right now the 2 teams that really have the profile that based on this that would meet in the finals would be Boston and Denver.
Which
which it seems that way. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. It's too tough to say just because you never know what can happen in a 3-game series.
Celtics have to be close in net rating. I feel like they've every game they've lost.
Yeah, plus 5.6.
Yeah.
The Lakers are 3rd. The Heat are 4th. The bubble
can't the two can. Oh God,
you can't escape it.
Yeah, God. If the Lakers, I still don't totally understand why the Lakers are beating the Warriors. I gotta say, like, it confounds me, and I just can't stay up till 10 o'clock to watch these games. So it's just like I'm trying to like piece it together. I'm like fucking McNulty in The Wire, just saying fuck over and over again, trying to like find the bullet in the fucking. McNulty and Bunk going over the crime scene after the fucking point. They're like, what happened here?
Well, if you just ask Warriors fans on Twitter what is happening, I've heard 2 things from Warriors fans. One, the refs are carrying them and the Lakers are flopping everywhere, and that the Warriors have no chance because they're just the whittled jump shooting team, and they don't have a chance against the strong, powerful, driving Lakers. Although apparently they've driven a similar amount the last 2 games, and the Lakers are still getting more calls. Is what's the new thing I've heard.
That's always been like the stats on the Lakers free throw disparity is like kind of insane, especially considering like where LeBron is in his career. That it's like all Austin Reeves. Like, wasn't there a stat that like Austin Reeves gets like more free throws than like Damian Lillard or like.
His free throw rate was like crazy at one point. Yeah. I mean, and they do have a lot of guys who can kind of grift those fouls, but I honestly think that the 2 things I've taken away from it is that first off, the first game broke my brain with how well the Warriors shot and they lost that game. Like, actually they didn't shoot that well. They just put up 53 threes. This was the first time I've ever seen the Warriors get baited into taking threes, and they made like 40% of them and still lost the game. But the disparity in the last game in free throws was 37-11. The Lakers had 37 free throws and the Warriors had 11. So like I would probably be going insane too if I were a Warriors fan, to be honest, because like how can that possibly be true? Even if we are a jump shooting team, like there's no fouls being committed.
That's what I'm saying. Like, because it's like not like it's LeBron. You know what I'm saying? Like what Anthony Davis. Because it's one thing. Honestly, that's another thing we haven't talked about was Sixers Celtics. Because I actually feel like the free throws have. I expected this to be a free throws made you cry series, like for the Sixers, and they really haven't gotten.
We don't get calls in the playoffs like people think we do. It never is the case.
Yeah, it's never really. It still really hasn't really happened yet. So. And if a team like with Harden and Joel Embiid isn't getting like these free calls, why is like Dennis Schroeder and like Rui Hachimura like getting like these calls? I still
you're going You're going big brain conspiracy. Do you think that if the league looked at the remaining teams and said what would be our perfect finals, you can't tell me that Lakers Celtics wouldn't be the perfect finals for what the league wants in these TV deals. Biggest fan bases, legacy fan bases, potential for the most titles. You could market Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown as American stars. You would have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. LeBron is always going to draw people. Like if you had to pick a finals, that would absolutely be.
It's like because if you go like one tier down from like lowest common denominator, I think Sixers Nuggets would do really well too.
I don't think the Nuggets is such a small market. Like Jokic and Embiid aren't really like the eyeball guys, really. Like, you know what I mean?
I mean, like the Celtics, people always like put Boston in like a large media market. Like even if you include like Maine, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, like their population is still like about the same as like the Memphis, the greater Memphis area.
Steelers, dude. They have fans all over the place. Like you guys were good in the 70s, you were good in the 80s, like. You have legacy fans. Like, and I'm not saying that is the number one thing. Like, obviously, market size matters more. But, like, from a eyeball standpoint, you would get if it were that Lakers Celtics for who wouldn't the winner of that be if the Celtics won, they would tie the Lakers or
no? Whoever would take the lead, they're tied right now.
Oh, they're tied right now.
Yeah.
Like they would push that shit for the old fans. Like,
yeah.
I do think that people would watch. Like, I think that would get a lot of eyeballs. And I'm telling you, the TV deal's right around the corner. Now, look, do I think that this is happening? No, I think that there's probably been, I think the Lakers get a pretty good whistle. And it's probably, you probably feel like you're going insane as a Warriors fan right now. But the series is never, it's not, like, dude, the Warriors were down 0-2 in the first round. They almost went down 3-1 if Harrison Barnes hits that shot. Like, they're not done. Like I still think there is time to come back, but I did need to laugh at this one tweet that I saw. We've talked about the Warriors and the Warriors fans being the perfect comparison for Silicon Valley shit.
Yeah.
But this tweet just made me feel like I was losing my mind a little bit. This is from a Warriors fan on Twitter named Jim Park. Steve Kerr needs to be gone after this year. This guy refuses to let go of his godforsaken offense that never, ever works in the playoffs. No matter how much evidence he sees that pick and roll is their bread and butter, he reverts. His ideology has held this team back long enough. He's incapable of evolving. They've won 4 titles, including last year's title. And I know that a lot of that was actually kind of based on defense. Like, their offensive rating in the playoffs wasn't as good, or in the finals wasn't as good. But, like, I'm sorry. You've won 4 titles. like, this is very much billionaires complaining about taxes vibe to me.
Yeah. It's I'm sorry that things have gone so wrong for you. Like, I ignore that I'm a Celtics fan who complains about Gordon Hayward's ankle destroying our franchise for 3 years, even though we made the conference finals in that time. I don't know. What's driving me insane about Lakers Warriors is I don't see a mathematical way that the Lakers should win a game, let alone 2. And I'm like, I still don't understand. Like, because normally I can kind of be like, okay, like that wasn't what, like even Bucks Heat, like I was like, okay, not what I was expecting, but the Bucks are a gummed up defense. Coach Spo can do this. Jimmy can go off. I still like don't, I like can't process how this Lakers team beats a Steph Curry team of any kind. Draymond Green gone. Like you put Kevon Looney and Dante DiVincenzo out there. Like how are you losing? I really don't get it. I need to someday watch these games.
We talked about most of the season is that this Warriors team isn't as good as old Warriors teams. We've known that for a while, but we knew they were going to hang because they are the Warriors and they have Steph Curry and Draymond Green and blah, blah, blah. I wish I could have a better answer for you because I even have these games haven't been competitive. So like I haven't even been I've been locked in on the other series. Mainly the Sixers, Celtics, and the Suns, Nuggets, because they've been fun, competitive games, and I enjoy watching them. Except for when the Sixers make me want to throw up all over myself. But this Lakers Warriors game, every game has been a blowout so far. So I can chalk up game 1 to maybe the Warriors were feeling them out a little bit, and then they came back and they crushed them in game 2. The Lakers got back home, they found a rhythm. D'Angelo Russell was fucking cooking. I was like, what is happening? D'Angelo Russell is making the Warriors defense look like fucking shit. And mainly what I kind of take from this is like, I guess I just kind of like, I don't understand how the Warriors in game 2 had a stretch where they were running Clay off of screen, like pin downs and screens at the top of the key. And Anthony Davis wasn't leaving the paint on the 2-man action. Which means that D'Angelo Russell was having to fight over screens and contest Klay Thompson threes from behind. And guess what? Klay Thompson hit like 3 in a row. And because Anthony Davis was in. Now, look, I watch a team with a drop center too. Joel Embiid will sometimes play drop, but like he's at least contesting enough near the level of the screen where like it's not a wide open 6 feet, no one near you 3. And Klay Thompson hit 2 or 3 in a row. And I was like, what are the Lakers doing? But anytime that Steph is running off the ball when I've watched, they've been physical with him. Like I think that there is a factor of you can be a little bit more physical with the Warriors in the playoffs and try to kind of get them off their game, off their rhythm. I'm kind of about as dumbfounded as you in terms of like what is happening other than the fact that every other game Anthony Davis is doing the James Harden thing. We're like,
yeah,
he only took 10 shots in the last game though. Like he went 7 for 10, scored 25 points, and the Lakers destroyed them. And like,
do I just have to like? It's just are Rui Hachimura and Troy Brown and Lonnie Walker all good now? Like, because that's basically what I'm left to come up with. Like that's the assumption you're making me come to, is that all three of those guys are, Grant Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, Derek White type players now. Like,
and also, LeBron only took 11 shots in that game, dude. Dude, combined, they had 21 combined shots between the two of them. Like,
I don't understand.
And it was funny because I was like, why are they putting Lonnie Walker in? And then it worked. I don't know. I'm losing my mind just as much as you in this series. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to actually watch tonight. Hopefully it's a competitive game, so I don't just like drift off into thought and my neurodivergent mind is just floating in the atmosphere. Because that's every time I try to watch these games, they're not good games. Like the Lakers go up early and then the Warriors never come back. The Warriors went up early in the other one and they never came back. Except for game one, which the Warriors had stormed back for that comeback at the end. They really haven't been that entertaining. So I'm interested to see how this series. I can't see. I mean, look, if the Lakers win tonight, their title, like they could win the title.
Well, no, they won't, because if they win tonight, it means the dog is correct. And
true.
Yeah. So
very good point. Very good point.
It's just the dog script, baby.
Yes. All right. Before we get out of here, I have one more thing I want to talk about. Which is by the way.
What? Wait. Sorry, never mind. I go ahead. Sounds like Poole might start against the Lakers tonight.
Yeah, because they were going to pull JaMychal. They moved him out for JaMychal Green, right?
Oh, no. Sorry. Gary Payton in the starting lineup now. Steph, Gary, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green.
Okay.
So
they're saying fuck spacing. Let's go defense.
Not a bad bet. Let Anthony Davis get 1 billion points and let's see what happens. I actually kind of fuck with it, to be honest.
All right, let's see.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry I cut you off.
I like that lineup in general, but all right.
Yeah.
That was so strange that either way. Bill talked about this on his podcast today. The other thing I got to say, shout out to Joel Embiid, who throughout his career has gotten a lot of shit for his double teams stuff in the playoffs. He's really struggled with that historically. The Sixers off of Joel Embiid double teams are shooting 70% efficiency field goal wise off of Joel Embiid double teams. So progress for Joel in that department, at least. I forgot to mention that I had that listed on my things that I wanted to talk about. Last thing, Bill keeps talking about the Orlando Magic. And I love the Magic. I love their young talent. I think they're a fun team. But Bill keeps talking about them to the point where I'm like, did someone tell Bill something? Because he talked, first off, he talked about Wendy. He said, when Wendy says things, you got to listen, right? Like Wendy is the slot whisperer.
Yeah.
And he basically said, Brian Windhorst said that the New York Knicks are monitoring this situation with Giannis and the Bucks, which I don't even know what in the world the Knicks think they could trade for Giannis, but that was interesting and they talked about it. And so Bill started talking about different teams, and he once again, after a year ago, he tried to get them to trade for Donovan Mitchell. He's thrown out Trae Young for the Magic. He's thrown out any star that Luka, whoever, once again called in Cerruti and said, what would it take to get Giannis on the Magic? And Russillo, in Russillo's defense, he was absolutely spitting on this. He's like, there's nothing on the Magic. And he's like, and I love the Magic young players. There's nothing on the Magic that could make the Bucks trade Giannis to them. But Bill was basically saying, what would the package even look like for Giannis? And what he came up with was Paolo Banchero. Their 2 top 10 picks they're probably going to have this year from them and the Bulls. And then every pick that they can basically trade and then maybe throw in, like, I don't know, Wendell Carter Jr. or Jalen Suggs or whoever. Like we talked about it with Luka. I don't think that Giannis, and they both agreed, they don't think that Giannis is going to ask out. They think Giannis is going to see this through and see if they can either do like a retooling like we've talked about or get a new coach and have a new mindset or whatever. He's not going to jump ship. But he does have 2 years left on his contract.
Yeah, I was just going to say, can I say something? I actually don't think that's crazy, and I actually think that's a perfectly fine package because I think we do this all the time.
Sure.
Like, think back to the Anthony Davis trade when it was like, wow, the Lakers, they gave up a lot, but, the Lakers got their guy and it and like, look, the Zion piece, what has submarined the New Orleans Pelicans has not been the Anthony Davis trade. Let me just put it that way. It is, it is the Zion thing and a couple of other things. It's bad luck, like I don't think, like, look, is it 1-to-1 equal value to get Giannis? No, but like, let me just say, I don't think the Bucks would necessarily be like dreams would be dashed if you made that trade. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's a perfectly fine trade to make. Like, obviously Giannis is the best player in the world. He's young enough that like you don't do that even if there's like a whisper of a chance. But if you are going to trade, if you are going to trade Giannis, I would rather do that than like trade for like Luka or whatever the fucking like, whatever the closer value is, like what Jason Tatum and Marcus Smart or whatever, whatever
Joel
the fuck.
Embiid. Like,
Joel
Embiid, whoever could be the next guy. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like it's, I would rather do that. Like all young guys, like I'd rather get Tyrese Halliburton in a shitload of picks or something like that than those packages, to be honest. Like or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I would much rather have Shai than like some of these other. I mean, I guess Jason Tatum's young enough, but I don't think that's crazy. Let me just put, maybe I'm zigging a little bit here. Maybe I'm trying too much to be a contrarian, but like, I don't think we've the Dwight Howard trade and like the dimes for, Bill always says this, and it's like, oh, you never trade 4 quarters for $2 or whatever the fuck he always says. I don't think that's really true anymore. Like, because those guys just leave. You know what I'm saying?
You almost always get your value back is essentially what you're trying to say here. Like, it's not, you're never going to replace Giannis, but like you're going to get back a top, 5-10 prospect in the league, plus a ton of picks that whoever knows what you could do with those.
When you're trading those guys, with the knowledge of there is a car crash coming. Yeah. Like that's why the Spurs traded for Kawhi Leonard. Like that's probably the worst superstar trade like of recent memory, like the DeMar DeRozan.
Do you consider Jimmy Butler a superstar?
Yeah, I guess that's pretty.
Robert Covington and Dario Saric.
Yeah,
like, I mean, I wouldn't even say this because the Sixers was a sign and trade. Like that wasn't a real trade. Like,
yeah, right.
The Robert, but that was also unique circumstances. Expiring contract, guy who before this run in Miami, a lot of people were out on Jimmy Butler because like they thought he was a locker room problem. He wasn't like the narrative has shifted a lot.
Well, and let me go here. Would you rather have Dario Saric and Robert Covington or Josh Richardson and
Seth Curry, who was what
Seth Curry? Yeah, like
same shit. I mean, or
what I'm saying, like
Curry. Yeah, sure.
Even that's like a bad trade. I mean, you do get that one season of Jimmy Butler, which isn't nothing, but I you know what I'm saying? I guess just that's been the convention because like there's all the horror stories about the Dwight Howard trade, but like a shitload of weird things happened in the Dwight Howard trade. Sixers fans know it was fucking Andrew Bynum's bowling accident, like changed the calculus on that. For some reason, the Magic like wanted to get Aaron Aflalo, but like they still got Vooch, who like gave them like pretty good value. Like if they didn't fuck up all their other moves, they could have had
your dream team just compete, get that 8th seed.
That's what I'm saying. Like they really though, like if they hadn't had like whiffed on like Mario Hazonia and
Aaron Gordon, who was good but not franchise.
Well, and then Jonathan Isaac just was his body broke for like however many years. You know what I'm saying? Like they had like a bunch of shit like that like go wrong. It wasn't even the Dwight Howard trade that like did that to them. So, and that's like one of the most lopsided star trades in a while too. So I don't know.
So I just want to say there really is like, I actually think that you would probably be headed towards a more of a Kevin Durant situation with the Giannis thing, where like when he left OKC and they were like, well, we're not going to trade you because we can win the title with you. like you, what I'm trying to say here is like, if they wanted to try to retool around Giannis and they kind of fix some things around him and they believed enough in their vision, like they don't have to trade Giannis is what I'm trying to say here. Like they could literally just make a push and try to win the title to convince him to stay for longer.
Well, and it's also not a bad bet with someone's personality like Giannis versus like Kevin Durant. So like, you know, like it's also just a chance that he's just comfortable and is like, yeah, all right, fine, fuck it. We'll be at 5 seed every year. We'll be at 5 or 3 seed, you know, and if you guys make it competitive, great. If not, sorry. I mean, the only thing there is they have like literally fucking nothing for like assets, which again, like very bare bones, and guys are gonna walk out the door unless they're like a hard tax team. So
and if you listen to Trill Bro Dude on the You Know Ball podcast, you would trade for Anthony Simons before the word gets out. Kevin Couchside tweeted today that if you look at players who, and this is something that Will has pointed out before, this is something I remember a year ago when they signed Anthony Simons to that contract. I was like, this is a good contract. And I know a lot of people didn't like that contract. He's making $25 million a year right now. He's better than Tyler Hero. He's better than Jordan Poole. He might be better than Tyrese Maxey based on how Maxey's played in this playoffs. And Maxey's going to make a lot more money. Right now, he basically did in almost 2,000 possessions without Dame. Anthony Simons is putting up 28.4 points per 75 possessions on plus 1.4 true shooting above league average with 5.6 assists per 75. There are only 17 players in the entire NBA who are doing that, and basically all of them are the best players in the NBA. It's like he is the Jalen Brunson star hiding in plain sight. You can get him right now because the Blazers want to win now, and they're not going to do the small guard thing again. If the Nets or the Bucks are listening, go get Anthony Simons. I'm telling you, you're going to be happy in a year or two if you get Anthony Simons. He's an insane shot maker. Already in his career, he has the 5th most amount of games with 9 threes or more made. The only players ahead of him are James Harden, Klay Thompson, Damian Lillard, and Steph Curry. Elite shooter, can be a ball handler that works off a guy like Giannis. And I don't think that the defense is really as bad as people say it is if he can get in the right situation. So could potentially be. So that would be my pitch to the Bucks if they can either flip Middleton or Drew into Anthony Simons. They should do that, but they won't listen to me. And we'll see in 2 years when Anthony Simons is making all-star teams how everyone feels. What I know, I said that was the last thing. I also had one more thing I wanted to hit on here.
Okay.
So Devin Booker, I forgot about this in the Devin Booker part. They talked about it a little bit on Bill's pod, but Devin Booker was kind of, to your point, what you always talk about, like, you could be the best player in the draft and get picked with the 13th pick, right?
Right.
Like that's what he went end of the lottery, Devin Booker. He was a bit player in college. He was a role player. They used him like JJ Redick. Like he was like a movement shooter off the bench that was highly rated coming out of high school, but not like, he was like top 30. He was a 5-star recruit. But he kind of got buried on a very deep Kentucky team, which LOL, just draft the Kentucky guards at this point. Cal clearly has no fucking idea how to use them. We've seen it with Hero and Maxey and Booker and Quickly and all these guys. So just draft the Kentucky guard. What's that?
Murray.
Well, Murray didn't fall. Murray was the 6th pick in the draft. So like at least he at least utilized him. And SGA fell a little bit.
You're talking about guys who like fell in the draft. Yeah.
Outside of the top 10. All these guys except for Murray were outside of the top 10. Because they just misused them at Kentucky, or they didn't develop into what they possibly could be by the end of their first year at Kentucky. But the most amazing thing about Devin Booker to me, and he will go down as the best player from his draft class, 2015, which is kind of a shitty draft class in general. He's basically going to be the only surefire Hall of Famer from that class. If you look at where he went in the draft, He was the 4th player that was drafted from his draft class in 2015. Karl Anthony Towns went ahead of him.
Oh, from his college team, you mean? Yeah.
From his college team, I'm sorry. Fourth player from his college team.
I was Karl Anthony drafted 13th, actually.
Yeah. Yes. I just said that. Karl Anthony Towns, Willie Cauley-Stein, Trey Lyles, and then Devin Booker. Benched for basically the Harrison twins on that Kentucky team. It's just an amazing story to see how he's going from that to like, we're going to be talking about him in the top 5, top 10 conversations after these playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, he's been there. He was all NBA last year.
Well, we said coming into the playoffs, we thought he was a top 10 player. Like I was by the halfway point of the season, I was like, he's the guy. Like it was trending in that direction. But when Chris Paul fully fell off this year, I was like, oh, he's the guy in Phoenix.
Yeah. Like he's like, Durant showed up on his team and he was like, no, fuck you. This is not like he did what Steph Curry couldn't do. Like, just took control from Kevin Durant. Like you are my sidekick. Like
you're the role player.
Yeah, really. Like you're the spot up guy. Get out there and play defense, bitch. Come on, let's go.
But in all seriousness, last thing on Booker, I think even I underrated how good he could be because I thought 2 years ago it was a conversation between him, Jamal Murray, Donovan Mitchell, and Zach LaVine. Like, I thought those 4 were, like, kind of in a similar pool of player. And I was like, I think at one point I might have even said that I preferred Mitchell or LaVine over him because I didn't know if he could become the top shot creator on a great team. And I thought that those guys might have been able to be, but totally wrong. He's been owning. And, I'm still blown away looking at his stats in the playoffs, what he's been able to. I mean, it's...
You know what?
He's averaging like Jordan numbers, dude.
Well, you know when it swung. When he said he was going to Hooters with the fellas, that was when we knew we had an all-time great on our hands. Did you know that?
Thinking about it.
That's one of the great tweets. Look up. That's my favorite old player tweet. So I feel it was like from 2013 that or something like that. Booker says he's heading to Hooters with the fellas. Yeah,
going to Hooters with the fellas. One of the greats. All right, last thing before we get out of here. I just need to read off. This is for all of the playoffs. This is like insane how this is happening. Devin Booker is averaging 37 points. 37 points a game in the playoffs. 7.4 assists. 3 turnovers. 5 rebounds on 61, 51, 87 splits.
I could do that. As a matter of fact, I probably will do that after this. You should see my stats I have against my nephew. He's 1.5. I'm just dominant on him. I could probably do these Devin Booker numbers if I was playing against a toddler. So
I don't think I could do that in an open gym with no one guarding me.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely
literally no. Actually, for a fact, I know I can't hit 50% of my open threes.
I'm happy. I'm happy if I've got Jay Crowder numbers out there.
Yeah, same here. I'm PJ.
I'm doing. If I've got some Killian Hayes conversions going, I'm in an open gym.
I'm crushing, dude.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to say before we get out of here? Devin Booker is God, obviously.
No, I do want to thank all the perverts who wished me well when I posted about my grandfather passing away. When I will not be on the pod later this week, I'm not a coward. I'm at my grandpa's funeral. It's not an excuse I made up to duck getting yelled at by everyone. Unless unless you see me in a mustache at the TD Garden. That would be very funny if I was just doing this to go to the game. You're just going like, I wrote up the obituary.
They zoom in. Yeah. Made it all up to avoid a potential diaper disaster post podcast. But
yeah, I got called into the underdog offices where I'm forced to pick higher or lower on how much my pay is getting cut. Yes.
All right. Well, we will have some guest co-hosts later in the week. We're going to be recording on Wednesday afternoon this time, so hopefully it's a good Sixers pod. But I'll be back later this week. I'll probably end up doing a second one later in the week or a third one later in the week as well, because if the series does end this week, I want to have hopefully not my suicide note, but something good for the podcast. All right, peace.
All right, peace.